everyone, welcome. Thank you for hanging in with me. The energies are so intense. There is this interesting development that's unfolding in front of our eyes in the UK in particular. And somehow, some way, I am the oppositional party to what it would seem is absolute controlled opposition. So I'm not going to give them yet what they want, as in back and forth. But what I am going to discuss are the energies of the day and the energies of our times and the reality of the situation that we're in, rather than going into the crass lower base back and forth. So as Vladimir Lenin said, let's share this screen. As Vladimir Lenin said, and it has been intense, guys, it's been really intense. They've been coming at it all guns blazing. So we see here this famous quote of the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves, Vladimir Lenin. And that's exactly what we see happening in this movement. There is a real, and what's meant for harm can be made for good by the right people, and vice versa. As everybody who knows me, loves me, and I love them, knows, is that I'm a realist as well. And we always went into this movement knowing that the message was find your tribe, find your people, and then get out. And that's more difficult than even I'd predicted for myself, in that these energies are sticky. There are many people that are in this false awakening and this throes of exactly where the controllers want them. And they're doing it very much so on the ground through the controlled opposition that has been put in place. There seems to be this terror in recognizing, when they speak about Event 201, negating the fact that there was just as much planning into what would control the opposition to such tyranny being placed on the people in many places around this realm at the same time. And a lot of the controlled opposition has reflections of one another, and they have the same energetic blueprint that they are using. And it does come from this political, religious blueprint. And you'll see and hear a lot of the same rhetoric in particularly Australia, America, the UK, very much following the same MO. So with this quote, it's pretty apparent that this has been known for a long time, that they cannot have unruly opposition. Wherever there is opposition, there are levels of control under these systems as they are. And so that level of control has persisted and increased. So just as much as billions was put into advertising and the rollout of that type of advertising to what this awakened side call the sheeple side, they failed to see just how much that was also put on to them. And so I just want to go through a few things. So let's go on to this one of the reflections of movement and the planned movement and the, let's say, narrative. So if we look at, if we put movement here and narrative here, and we look at, there's the extremism, and so there's a lot of extremism in this side that is meant to understand, understand and overstand love and light. Extremism and the breaking up of families with that same extremism, friends. Let's get a better writing tool. The breaking up of structures of society that help support one another, with the same propaganda as on this side. So you have people actually stopping their grandchildren from seeing grandparents. And these people in this movement side were shouting very loudly to say unity, unity now, freedom, and also sharing meme after meme after meme about how the government, this side, were stopping them from seeing friends and family, grannies and grandpas. And it wasn't, it was their own views, absolutely taken and used in a cycle of extremism on both sides, exactly the same energetic imprint. You then have the extremism of many speakers standing up there and speaking about the unjabbed and the jabbed, and spreading fear about this judgment and ridicule. Really, they were literally, they laughed at these people. They laughed about the fact that almost willing many to die. And this was exactly the same on this side. And it was instilled through extremism, with fear being the main ingredient. And on this side, fear being the main ingredient. So you had people on this side with a fear of the unjabbed, and you had the same reflection on this side. Again, it's a cycle of the same energetic blueprint, the same energetic reading. It absolutely is completely the same. And we see on this side where a few people put in place magically without any real kudos of why they are, qualification-wise, experience-wise. We see that rich or well-off get richer, and the poor get poorer. The same blueprint as, you know, these people in these movements, these placed speakers, these oppositional speakers, poor get poorer. They are constantly asking for donations, saying they're fight in this, fight in that, but that money is never seen by the community. On the ground, there are good people within this side and this side stepping up and trying to fill in the gap where that lack is. But as far as a lot of these main speakers who magically appeared from nowhere, got some kind of audition to go on London stage at the protests, you know, just magically were there. They were the ones that are constantly donation, donation, donation. And people who are getting more and more poor are donating to these people on the never, never, the never ending story of the end is in sight, we've already won. After this cycle of this movement is complete, without the people really gaining too much more control back from the controllers they say they're fighting, you will see that these people will disappear off with their bank accounts being all that more plump for your naivety. And so we see that also on this side, where they're shutting down businesses and the poorer get poorer, the rich get richer. And it is going to the exact same people in the higher echelons. In the movement, you'll find people who have connections who say they are fighting child trafficking, yet that money that they are claiming is going towards fighting child trafficking without any incentive being shown whatsoever to implement any kind of action plan or how they would actually save these children, source these children. There's been various different psyopses within the UK movement about this, and basically nothing to show for it. Again, we see on this side with the narrative of them taking more taxes from people who can afford it far less, and they see the pound signs filling up on that side too. And ultimately, you can bet your life on it one way or the other, going back to the very thing that keeps this financial system ticking. And that would be the lack of care, let's say for YouTube, for our children, and the ability for them to still use children as a monetary gain in various vile ways. And so then we go and see the fake inquiries. So in this movement, all of these donations are going towards these inquiries that have gone nowhere. They've been met with nothing. And you'll see them sharing videos of these papers being passed over, and basically they've gotten nowhere. They're not going to ever get anywhere, and they know that. But again, they can keep asking for the donations because they're going to do the job for you. If you just consent and give your money, they will then be putting these papers in, and they'll get lots of good people within this sphere of society then doing it for free, while they're still asking for donations to type up a few things. You'll find that the same people that are putting in these inquiries are actually making money from this movement continuing for as long as possible, to be in place in opposition to what they say they're in opposition to, when actually it is all about monetary gain, control and power of the market. You will find doctors that have been speaking out like a superhero, somebody called Cahill, who has been speaking out, and while she's been put in asking for donations and buying castles, she's been building castles in the sky in people's hopes and dreams that these inquiries about the special ingredients in the said jab, while she's doing that, she's absolutely got stocks and shares and interests in her life's work of actually helping create this same technology that has been used in the various vaccines over the years. And so she's making it like all good elites from both sides of war, from both the movement and the narrative, both being built on the same narrative. You'll find at the same time, well, people have Savile in mind and the likes of those who procured children for Savile. You will find links within this very movement of these speakers who then say they are fighting child trafficking while taking your donations to do so, and again putting in other inquiries because they're going to be these white hats and do the job for you. And it's going nowhere other than to lace the pockets of those that actually are for the likes of trafficking, or for the likes of untested, unmanned vaccines and various rollouts. And these fake inquiries are on this side too. You've seen it with Partygate, you've seen it with election fraud, all of these inquiries that cost so much money and so much tax, pounds and dollars, you know, that make it, you know, so that we have to donate. We want to know, so we will happily pay to know the truth. The truth is unfortunately in tiny writing, distorted, dissolving each time somebody spends a buck in the direction of these charlatans. Then we look at the fact that we look at charities. And so you'll find that these people on the movement, and I'm not saying all, there are some grassroots things that people have done off their own backs with their own blood, sweat and tears, and you hear nothing about it. Why? Because they are not paid to be heard. They are the quiet ones doing the white hat work without very much recognition at all, and even being penalized, judged and ostracized, again by the instigation of the controlled opposition within the movement. You will see that a lot of these charities, again, have financial ties to the very thing that they say they're fighting, particularly when it comes to the care of children. Again, on this side, You'll see that people are appealing to people's charitable nature. You know, you're going to get some money to take in Ukrainian refugees, but then all of a sudden that money disappears and you are left poorer in a household that's costing you more money with more mouths to feed. If in fact that is even happening to anybody, that might well just be a storyline for yet another layer of tax to, you know, pay that back somehow. Austerity, we've all got to stick together, right? So then we can look at the fighting of the establishment. Like, yeah, we're fighting loud. Now, you can say we're fighting the establishment, yet people can have direct correlatory evidence from the mouths of the very people themselves, these controlled opposition speakers within the movement, and it's too close to home. People within the movement, for the most part, apart from the few, again, really want to shout loudly about fighting the establishment because the establishment is all the way over here in their eyes. So they're not really ready for the fight. So they'll do it from a distance, knowing that it's like, hold me back, hold me back. So say you had a video about Boris admitting to the fact that, you know, he backs people who procure children for Savile. If you had that, people on this movement side would be more than happy to share it, pull it apart. But when it is right on their doorstep, you know, shining like the sun, when it's right on their doorstep, it's too close to home. They don't want to see. They're not quite ready for what they say they are ready for, and that is fighting the establishment. Why? Because somewhere within a lot of people is still this need to better the devil you know. And though they say they've moved away from the narrative side of things, all they've done is go back and forth from the two different pastures that absolutely have the same grass. And so again, we have on this side the storyline of fighting the establishment, this illusion of an opposition, a voice for the other people, when we have seen time and time again that does not exist. And when it comes down to it, actually, people who have been willing to really fight the establishment have disappeared or have been judged. They've been hung in the public opinion courts and they are no longer listened to. So it is an echo in the chamber of truth and is locked like a vault. We do then have to say that they've got incentives to continue the illusion. These incentives come from cash money, incentives on this side. These people who are speaking about sovereignty, but then are saying you need something else outside of you to save you, and want to reflect the same tyrannical energetic blueprints as the system they say they are fighting, they have incentive to keep this going. They have incentive to keep you in fear. They have incentive to make you feel inferior about your own decision making, your own real sovereign and free will. So they have incentives in cash money, once again, to keep the storyline going for as long as possible. This is a gravy train, choo-choo, on both sides of the coin, going at full force, and they don't want this to stop. They want everybody to jump on board like little characters on I don't know, Thomas the Tank. You know, they want to keep this gravy train going. And on this side, also on the narrative side, again, they're just sending the train back and saying this is good, very, very good. They have a cycle, a continuing cycle of deceit, the truth mixed with lies, conspiracies made to look very silly by people on this side and people on this side. And that gravy train just goes back and forth with many incentives to keep the what? Fear going. And the story of the never, never. This will end one day. This will end one day. We've already won. The battle's already done. You just need to keep paying in on both sides and you're going to be okay. It's a little bit like paying your way into heaven, you know, having that cleansing of the soul by crossing the palm of those that want to keep the fear going. Makes sense, right? Not. So then we have political aspirations. Wouldn't you think that people on this side wouldn't really want to reflect politics as it is on the other side? But they do. They lie. They subvert the truth, they avoid, they distract. Again, on this side, lie, avoid, distract. Exactly the same energetic blueprint on both sides. We looked at the stage attacks. If we look at the stage attacks and the ramifications of such, you'll have seen many videos of people getting arrested, yet they've never been charged. But Joe Blogs on the Street does something or says something as hateful a speech as some of these people who are the prominent controlled opposition in the UK in the movement. They are arrested for show, but it's all for show. There's nothing that comes of it. Again, very much like the inquiries of people who, I don't know, have gone to illegal wars on this side. There is a show, an illusion of ramifications for these people, but the ramifications never seem to really come. They never come down the line, just the threat thereof. Again, controlling both sides, locking down both sides of the coin, because once again, what are people afraid of? They're in fear of what they're being shown will be the ramifications for them. But when it really happens to people, when people really get silenced, when people really get cancelled, it happens in a whisper. Whereas these people who are feeling the ramifications of censorship and not being allowed to say what they want to say, they've actually done well by getting to be known even more than they were before. And that proof being in the pudding of you're not censored if you're still able to silence others. We see the demanding of answers, yet never answering. So prominent people on this side and those that follow them will be demanding of answers of people and politicians, demanding answers, but they will not answer anything put to them that is outside of their script or outside of what would keep their gravy train going. Again, we see this on the political side too. We can demand the answers all we like. All of these, where is it? Oh, fake inquiries going in on this side, and this side comes down to silence. They never answer a straight question. Again, they'll be loud, they'll be distractionary, they'll divert, but they will not answer a straight question when put to them. Insanity. Let's see here for the insanity. You've got people on both sides prominently in government as part of the narrative, people who follow the government, people who follow the narrative, showing levels of insanity like never before. They are demonizing life itself. They're demonizing empathy. They're demonizing compassion. They're demonizing the ability to forgive self for any mistakes. And so with that, we see that they absolutely on both sides are showing levels right now of insanity. They can't hear when they are being so contradictory to what their action is, or when they are saying love and light, but they're saying it in a very passive aggressive way, when you can't reason with them. There's no reasoning with them. You've got them having this feeling of supremacy through this insanity, and it very much is being instigated by a lot of these prominent speakers talking about, well done, you didn't get jabbed. Well done for what? You made a choice. And then you made a choice to judge others for their choice. You're not reflecting love and light in that. You're reflecting the energy of supremacy. When you are cutting children off from friends and loved ones, you are instigating within your own children a level of fear that is insane, because then you're still going to the same Asdas, the same Lidls, and mixing with strangers who you don't know and shouldn't be asking their medical resume of before you shop there or be beside them in a queue. But the love is gone, the compassion is gone as to when it comes to friends and family being allowed in your home if they've made a medical choice different to yours. Again, it creates absolute division. And we see on this side is looking at those that still believe in voting as insane. And vice versa for this side are looking, because we're being represented by buffoons as controlled oppositionalists, and on this side in the narrative, we are being absolutely represented by controlled buffoons. Both sides are looking quite rightly at each other and leveling with the perception of they're insane. And so both sides being equal to one another in energy, both sides judging one another and could probably maybe judge one another equally. And there's only the few. Like every sacred story, there's only the few that will see, that do not go from one extreme to the other. The unfortunate thing for the few here is that we get squeezed by both sides. We neither belong in this extreme and we neither belong in this extreme. And it's for these few that it is a very tough task to integrate any kind of unity in these two very fixed, very concreted ways of thinking on both sides. Judge not lest you be judged. That is the thing. And so this is just an observation of the energies and what we're dealing with in the UK. And it is getting more and more difficult from a spiritual and physical standpoint to widen this margin to a space of comfortability while the few continue to live their lives doing good things, implementing good things, and actually being the change that they want to see. Because both of these sides in their extreme are terrified of these few. Terrified. Why? Because on both sides, we threaten what they hold dear. And what they hold dear is judgment, lack of discernment, welcoming of insanity and extremism, and a procrastination for real positive change, an apathy for something that is outside of that they've been indoctrinated to accept all of their lives and generationally before them. So it's for these few, as always, to light the way. But this cycle in particular is intense, and it is a task. Because it's a task to be in these worlds, but not of these worlds, because they're on either side of us. And so it's a task to hold this light in the middle, where there is a void of darkness, of consciousness squeezing in. But hold the light we will. And that light is not afraid. These few who have this love and light really in their core, they're not afraid to take the light into either darkness, into any darkness. We actually quite like it. As annoying as it can be at times, and as pressurized as it can be at times, those like me and myself, our spirits quite like the task of holding light in difficult and somewhat exciting times, because within that level of squeeze of darkness all around, our lights are shining pretty bright, and we're finding one another, and we're building things, and we're not shouting about it. We're not screaming about it. We're not wanting to profiteer from it. In fact, we're wanting to spread it. And so that light will be held for you regardless by the few. That is part of what we find exciting. It's part of what we find riveting. It's part of us. The darkness will squeeze, but we're not afraid of the dark either. So where we are surrounded by fear on both sides, we will continue to hold the light. We will continue to embrace the dark and not even judge it, but bring light to it, to discuss it, to open up the dialogue where dialogue is being shut down. So with that, much love, much balance, and much entire wholeness to you all. I appreciate you all for hanging in with me. No doubt we'll get down to the nitty-gritty of this little escapade that we've been put through by others for so long. But you know, I'm holding the light, baby.